Hello everyone, my name is Connor Saller and this is my presentation on measuring agency in STEM for diverse learners in secondary science. To give you all a little context, I myself am a secondary science teacher at Denver Center for International Studies in Denver Public Schools. I teach sophomore chemistry, AP chemistry, AP biology, and I'll continue my secondary science teaching next year over at Denver East High School. Why I was really curious about this topic, Dr. Boucher asked us to investigate something that kept us up at night, or a question that really is inherent in our teaching practice, and this was the one I decided to pursue. So I've always been really connected to students who tell me that they have pursued a pathway in STEM, whether it's career-based or whether it's going into college for a STEM degree, engineering degree, mathematics, technology. And this is intended to target marginalized students in terms of how we can increase that retention, curiosity, and enrollment in STEM pathways after high school. So to get started, I'll just be going through some slides and some main points. And the audience for this would be anyone like a district, point person, principals, or other science teachers that might be curious to be able to measure levels of agency, which we'll kind of talk about here in just a moment with their science learners. So what is the point of this research? This research aims to acquire the necessary methodologies, structures, and appropriate questions that can provide schools and district with accurate qualitative and quantitative data that measures a secondary science learner's agency. I think it's good to pause here and discuss what science agency can refer to. There's a lot of different definitions and kind of maybe ways agency fits into different content, specifically with a science learner, how their own learning and how their own experiences in secondary science can positively impact themselves, their community, and the future world around them through not just what they learn, but through what they do as well. So those can be like the experiences, the projects, the involvements, the partnerships, the field trips, whatever it may be, to help boost a learner's agency. It comes from choice, it comes from positive relationships with mentors, and positive relationships with the teachers involved, and just the overall relationship of science is really important for how students measure higher or lower with agency. Cool. So by doing so, science educators can correlate teaching practices and instruction that are effective or ineffective in empowering students with the confidence and belief that learning science positively impacts the community and world around them. All right. My three research questions that helped my literature review throughout the process of acquiring literature, text, articles, journals, and all that. First one is, what are the defining characteristics of authentic agency in the context of science education, and how do these characteristics differ across diverse learner populations? Specifically, my two marginalized demographics that I looked at for STEM education were women scientists and scientists of color, or students of color. Next question is, in what ways do learner perceptions of agency in science education impact their motivations and decisions to pursue post-secondary STEM majors? And I'll touch on this a little bit later, but it's really interesting to see a really pivotal year, specifically that freshman year in college. According to where they are at, not only with their curiosity about maybe pursuing the STEM, but also the supports and the structures their freshman year, how important those are for them to then retain STEM education. So that was a really cool aspect that I didn't know about, just that pivotal year of freshman year in college. What metrics and methodologies are most effective in assessing authentic agency among diverse learners within the science education landscape? And how can these be integrated into existing educational frameworks? So this idea of authentic agency compared to pseudo agency, it's really, does the agency come from the students themselves, or is the agency coming from the teacher or the educator or other societal factors that are extrinsic compared to intrinsic within the student. So having kids building things in your classroom, right, can be an example of pseudo agency because it's what you might see, it's what you might expect as a scientist, and you see them with that engineering component, right? And it doesn't actually reflect how they are feeling intrinsically about what they're building, why it's important to the world around them, and if it actually makes like a positive impact on their community. So, all right. Next up, talking about just the benefits of this research. So the ultimate benefit of this research study is a better understanding, structure, and a consistent framework to how we increase diversity in STEM education through the belief that all students have the capability to be important scientists through their high school experience and post-secondary pathways. Representation in STEM majors and careers will include those historically marginalized. So trying to shift the narrative and the perception and also the stereotypes of what a scientist post-secondary education, after they graduate college, in high school, what that looks like, and changing the narrative for the belief that all students can become scientists. And I think that secondary science career from 9th grade to 12th grade is really essential to help students believe and recognize and establish a level of agency. Cool, moving on. Here is my literature review. I chose 20 total pieces of literature, and they were divided into 3 sections. And my literature review was also divided into 3 sections. We started with agency in STEM and how we can come up with a definition that is authentic and specific to our demographics that we were trying to increase retention rates and enrollment rates for our women scientists and scientists of color. We have then our diverse science learners. So what do our diverse science learners, what do they gravitate towards? What are the obstacles and challenges that are present in today's educational society and institutions that prevent women and students of color to really pursue STEM pathways, majors, careers? And then my last topic was adoptable survey and framework designs. So what is a effective and meaningful survey design as well as framework that we can explore, that we can adopt, that we can modify and integrate and implement into schools and districts for them to provide to secondary science educators to measure how authentic levels of agency within their scientists. All right. Here's the first page, and here is my second page. And thank you for checking out my sources. And then lastly, actually, I think this is my last point, discussion and moving forward. So the ultimate benefits as well as the legacy of this research. This research explores the concept of authentic student agency in STEM, particularly among diverse learners like women and students of color. It emphasizes the importance of using culturally relevant and multifaceted methods to gather meaningful data about students' confidence, perceptions, and engagement in science. The literature highlights that fostering agency requires addressing systemic barriers, promoting inclusive environments, and challenging traditional Eurocentric views of science. Effective interventions include providing diverse role models, encouraging active participation, and creating supportive networks that boost self-efficacy. To measure and understand agency over time, the study advocates for a comprehensive, mixed methods longitudinal approach that captures students' decision-making, voice, and behavior control within their social and cultural contexts. Overall, nurturing true agency helps students see themselves as capable contributors to society and supports their persistence and success in STEM pathways. To revisit one of these components of the literature review was the methodologies. So this would be an intervention that occurs in 9th grade through 12th grade, and those would target specific diverse science centers that have very low measures of agency. So following them throughout high school, once the interventions take place, how have those interventions been effective in terms of if they are then curious to pursue a pathway in college for a STEM major or another pathway of STEM career, and being able to measure their consistent and their perseverance in STEM would be the qualitative and quantitative data to show those trends throughout the 4 years of high school and then the 4 years of college as well. So I think that is all I have. Thank you so much for listening, and this was a really insightful, enduring, and I'd say educational process of reading through the literature and recognizing all the research that has been done with diversity in STEM. And thank you so much for all the peers and Dr. Boucher for helping support this final project.